want answers.
I want the truth.
But yeah,
what I'm realizing is how many of us came in knowing, like, I think now, oh my God, totally knew that this was going to be a shit show, but actually chose to come in because I was not going to let other people do this alone. And that's what I recognize now. I'm like, yeah, that's absolutely my heart. And I know that that's why Max has done it. I know that's why Rachel has done it. Jenny, like, it is literally like we are just not going to let that carry on and for anyone to have to do this alone. So we're going to get right in the battle with them. And, there you are.
I think that's a great place to start the podcast right there with what you just said.
Right.
So let me just introduce the fact that we're on a podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Realize Real Lies podcast. I am your host, Georgina Grace. I have such a special present for all of you today. I have the most extraordinary human being. I know I say this a lot about a lot of people, but I really say it about most of the people that come on my podcast because they are really extraordinary people. But this woman is, you will feel when you listen to this podcast or watch this podcast how special this woman is and how beautifully divine she is. We have Sarah Seagar on the podcast today. Sarah is a ruling 36-9. I didn't even check. Are you okay with me introducing you with your I usually check. I didn't check. So Sarah,
I'm in good company. I'm feeling very supported.
So Sarah is a ruling 36-9, and this is so our dear Rachel is also a 36-9, and so you're already starting to get a bit of the flavor of who this woman is. This number is like earth energy number. If you could envision what Mother Earth, Mother Nature would be embodied, it would be this energy. This woman is so deeply and divinely connected to the ebbs and flows of the needs of Mother Earth and Mother Nature that she speaks the language of Mother Earth and Mother Nature, speaks a frequency that most people need to hear for their healing. We can talk about that or we can not talk about that. It's totally up to you. But she is a healer, a divine healer. She has this ability to see people in a way that, how do I put it? Most people would probably avoid looking you directly in the eye because of your intense gaze and your ability to see straight through to people's hearts and people's souls. And so this is who we have on the podcast today. She is such a light being. And I personally, whenever I connect with you, Sarah, I always just feel so like I have spent an entire week sitting and meditating on the earth. Like, that's how I feel. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I feel like you do.
That's a very, very kind introduction. Yes. Well, I'm glad that I'm glad that you brought up the language because that is something that I know is definitely required, and it's how I do my work. I'm finding more and more that it's very difficult to shut it off. So where I've respected a lot of boundaries around that for other people, I'm starting to kind of put my own boundaries in place and go, no, actually, if you're going to work with me, this is a part of how we do that. So yeah, thank you. Should we do a little transmission? Yeah.
You go first. I haven't done it
Wait,
publicly
I know
yet.
you won't be able to stop yourself, so it's fine. Yana hoi na he da la ono kia tanga. E tono ko e shina kia na o shu da da kia no to koe. E ya kaura la hai da ama koe. E si ya kaura la e no koe. E tena koe, ina ha, e shono koe tanga. E tu maya la koe ha. A tena koe. Thank you.
Oh, I felt that right here. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm a little nervous to do it.
Ina ho ina huruma.
Shikarawaiaya kiaka, mbarawaiki kiaka, shikara uaya karaikoi kia kiaka, shikaraiki ki, mbarawaiki kiraikaya, rikoaya kiaka, yeah.
Ah, you boomer. We can't do a whole podcast on light language.
Sarah, can you please explain what just happened?
You know, the thing is that when this started, I couldn't have explained very much, but recently I'm really getting so much more certain about what's coming through. Um, so what I said was it was an introduction. It was a welcoming and a expression of gratitude to all those that want to listen, and an introduction of my bigger self, my true self who wants to make the connection. And it was also a real thank you to you, Georgina. And, I love it when we start to speak. It's like champagne bubbles inside. It just can't stop. The energy is so beautiful and playful. And one day I'm gonna give you a hug and we're just gonna burst into stars.
I love that. Most people are like, we're going to burst into tears, but no, we're going to burst into stars. It's so, so, so beautiful. Do you think you could explain what light language is?
Hmm. I think there's so many people who have their languages, so it's not really unique. Our individual frequencies are unique, and so our language will come out in its own way, but you'll find people who have shared frequency. So you resonate with some people and you don't resonate with others. Um, but I really feel like it is the language of the universal soul. It is the soul's way of communicating the truth of the love and the knowledge that you have to the ones around you. So it is pure love pouring out. And people have got all kinds of experiences and associations with things like speaking in tongues. And I didn't grow up with religion. So I don't have those associations, which is very helpful. But that's why I do check in with people. When I am working with people, I don't just bombard them with my light language. I do check because I do have clients who've had terrible experiences within the church. So I understand that. But yeah, for me, it is a universal soul language that is, I feel like we could just get rid of English eventually and we could just do the telepathy thing and speak like this and we would just get it. Like I just get you when you speak to me. And you just got it when I spoke to you. So I don't think you can put it into any more defined terms than that. but
Mm.
it is healing. It works in your cells. It vibrates within you. It wakes things up. So it can activate, it can code, it can heal. Like, but it only does what you want it to do. You
Mm.
won't allow anything that you don't want with it. So it'll meet your heart where you are.
So beautiful. And I have to share how I came to speaking it because it still shows up for me as like, what the F?
Well, and let's be clear, it's been less than a month, right?
Yeah, yeah, less than a month. So I did a numerology reading for Sarah. And prior to reading for you, I had only very recently heard about light language, but only because if I, sorry, scrolled on Instagram, there was one video that I actually stopped and watched on this Instagram. It was this woman speaking in some kind of light language. It was the first time I'd ever, whoa, like, what is this? But, it kind of intrigued me. But that was it. That's all I ever experienced of light language. And then, by doing a reading for you, you shared about your light language and you did, you showed me a little bit of it. And it was maybe like, I don't know, 2 or 3 seconds. And I didn't say it at the time, but when you spoke this language to me, there was this feeling right in here. What's this, like solar plexus? This feeling in here, and it literally felt like click, like a unlocking or an activation or something. And it totally freaked me out. It's like, okay, let's just get on with the numbers. And then you sent me a little, I think it was like a 1 minute voice message with more of this light language. And then I just can't even describe the experience in my body when I was listening to that. And Ollie was also talking back to it. Then I'm getting in the shower that night, and his voice comes into my head and says, I remember my soul language. Just like this. Like, okay, crazy. And as I'm in the shower, these sounds started just coming out of my mouth. I remember Corey coming in and saying, are you okay? I said, I don't know. But then um, the next morning I had to drive to drop Corey off somewhere and I'm in the car. And I don't know what I was doing, whether I was humming along to a song or what it was, but I was humming and then the humming became loud and these sounds started to just flood through me. My body was shaking and vibrating. I'm driving as well, so trying to hold it together and not lose my mind. And I recorded a little bit of this stuff and I sent it to you like, what's going on? What's happening? What have you done? Yeah. And yeah, that's that whole day. You responded to me and you said, oh, like losing your mind. And I was like, how is this? How is this happening? But the energy that was flowing through me that day was like, oh, how do I describe it? It was like, uh, it was like finally, like it had been waiting like thousands of years, it felt, to come through and to have permission to come through. And it was just like coming, I was walking up to strangers on the beach, giving them messages in light language.
That was amazing. It's amazing because how brave, not only to just be having the language come through, but you're getting the vision and and to tell people, to walk up to strangers and tell them is like, wow, that is such surrender and trust. That's absolutely the way to do it.
I mean, there was a big part of me that was like, am I making this up? Because I just want to look really good to Sarah and like have this light language. But then I was going up to strangers on the beach. I'm like, there mustn't be any ego in this whatsoever.
Well, I mean, some of the language that comes through is like gruff and not pretty. And yeah, there's no, if you're worried about how you come across, that is not the way you're going to express that.
And so I was then compelled to record voice messages to like all these different people. One of them, there was Rachel, there was Max, Narita, all of these people. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on with me? And some of the things that were coming through, it's funny. I don't know what it's like for you when you speak it, but when these messages were coming through, it was like the light language would come through, but then an English version of the light language would come through, and that would kind of, oh, okay. But as I'm doing the light language, I am seeing, like you said, visuals of like, oh, this is what it's saying, you know? And one of the messages that came through still stays with me. Oh, they all stay with me, but there was a familiar message that was coming through that came through for each of those people. And that was about it was right before the eclipse as well, which is wild. And it was about these falling golden stars.
Yes.
Falling golden, it was something like the falling or fallen golden stars are now rising.
I don't know if we had this I don't think we did have this conversation because around that time, and you're right, it was like 2 days before the eclipse,
Mm.
and I had this vision of like watching glitter being poured in front of me, like a stream of gold glitter bouncing, and it was just all these stars bouncing kind of from this gold star waterfall.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It must have been really connected into that disruption of the light.
Mm. Yeah, because one thing that came through, and I don't know where to go with this, but I've been starting to see things that suggest maybe that this message or transmission that came through might be true. Because one of the things that came through was something about the moon. And so there was the moon was coming through, and then the word simulation came through. And then since then, I've been seeing all these videos and things of people taking videos of the eclipse, and they're seeing the moon move in front of the sun, but then they're like, okay, so the moon is there. Then they move the camera, they're like, but then what's that?
Yeah,
And I'm just like, whoa,
yeah.
whoa. So
Yeah, actually, that happened for me a few years ago. I remember looking at the sky and being like, hang on. Yeah, this doesn't quite all add up, but I've had some stuff come through. And the moon's a really interesting topic because I think now we're going to go down the woman's path, mate.
bring it on.
So I think that when the moon was put where it is, now I'm not saying that I know how it was formed or anything like that, but when it was placed where it is,
Mm.
that was the move that whatever they did with that, um, that's how we ended up with our cycles. So the tides of the water, the cycles of the woman with the menstruation, fertility. I believe that before that, and without the influence of it, and I love the moon, so it's not to say that this is, I don't think the moon was actually originally a negative thing. I think it's been used negatively.
Mm.
Um, but I think we women are so goddamn powerful, so powerful. And I just really believe that we were able to choose when we wanted a baby. We were able to choose when it was time to be fertile. There's just so many other ways in which I'm sure we had control over our health, over our bodies, over our energy.
Mm.
And I think that the moon being placed where it was, or whatever they did to it to create the influence, was entirely around controlling the divine feminine. And I'm actually the feminine. Like, I mean, definitely it disrupts the divine feminine in the males and females, but for the feminine aspect, living out a physical role here, that was this whole, well, one way we can control them and make them less powerful is we can make sure that they're stuck in this loop. And every month they have to go through the emotional turmoil, the physical pain, and the process of losing their blood. Like, I don't know, it's almost like the grief of not being pregnant every month.
Mm.
And then what does that do? I don't know. I mean, the story goes on, right? Because then you've got the menopausal woman. And I
Mm.
just feel like there's been a whole lot of influence upon us that has created, this world where, yeah, women had all of their power stripped from them. They've had all of their knowledge slowly chipped away. Um, when I was a midwife and we were doing the training around the history of her story of
Mm.
midwifery. Um, it was like the early 1900s when they started to institutionalize childbirth,
Mm.
and they would bring women into. First of all, it was just like little rooms where they'd have, you come in and have your baby and there'd be other women there. Well, of course, that brings in separation from family and people that you love and the people that protect you. Brings separation from your own practices, your own food, all of that stuff that's so important. And then slowly, it was like, well, actually, if the doctors get in at that time, then they actually created a lifetime connection with this family, which again disrupts the mother's knowing and the wise woman giving the health advice. And suddenly the medical framework is all in place to just, corrupt the whole system and to diminish the role of the mother. And oh my gosh, you know, now we're at this point where it's like, oh, well, I'm talking to the perfect person because,
Mm.
like you have just beautifully come in and gone, this is actually how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to have a huge screaming match about it. I'm just going to go on and do it. You and your husband
Mm.
supporting you, which is so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I just could go on about birth forever because walking away from that was really difficult. I think when it's like anything where you've done that for a long time, you start to really tie up your value as a person into what you do as a job. And so I think when I came out of midwifery, I did quite a slow leave. But it's really interesting because I currently feel like that is not a place I would go back to. I'm so angry about what has been done to women and children and husbands and fathers, all of that. So that paradigm, and because it's not the true paradigm of what we're supposed to do. And women are supposed to be giving birth the way that you're teaching and the way that you did it. And I'm really lucky because I had two really fantastic birth experiences too. And I learned from that. I remember after having my son just being like, I can do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I love this topic and could talk about this for days and days, but I have never stopped to think about the influence of the moon. I mean, yes, I think about the influence of the moon because it's all connected with my cycles and all of this stuff, but I've never questioned well, I have questioned the moon, but not in this sense. And I think
Mm.
this is a really profound um thing to look at and consider. Wow, because exactly what you said about every month we are like women are stuck in this constant loop. And then we're shamed for being in this loop. It's dirty, it's disgusting, ill, gross, all of this stuff that we spend our lives hiding, not just hiding the evidence of it, hiding the blood, all of this stuff, but also hiding the fact that we are emotionally, internally going through so much. And yet on the outside, we still have to show up to a 9 to 5 every day, or, to it's not right. It's not right at all. And I don't know what it's like to be a man to have no cycling like this is just like kind of this flat line. That's kind of what I envision it to be, where we're like this, and then men don't have a cycle. So they're kind of so the
I
nine to
don't
five is
know.
well, I know,
I
right?
think they do. See, I do.
Do
I think
you?
energetically they're
Oh,
so tied in with us.
yes, they
And
are.
they do. And
Yeah.
so they love to talk about, how you're being premenstrual or are you on the rag or whatever. And half the time, if you look at it objectively, I don't know if I can be objective about this.
I mean,
Try. I think they're going emotionally. What happens is when we're in that space, we have to withdraw our energy from everything around us because it's a bit like when you're pregnant. You can't remember things as well. And it's like you literally have more important things going on.
yeah.
Your body knows this is far more important. We don't need to worry about whether you remember the eggs at the supermarket.
Mm-mm.
And I think what happens is because we have to withdraw and because we are physically withdrawn, we can't, well, people can have sex, but a lot of us won't have sex when we have our period. I mean, it's messy and it doesn't feel the same. So I just think they react. They are, yeah, they're in that same kind of ebb and flow that we are, but they don't get the physical evidence. And so they feel angry with the feminine for not being what it's supposed to be for them because they can't understand that because we're talking energy. And
Mm,
they don't, like they feel the energy, but they may not have the articulation around what it is they're feeling. So it's
absolutely.
kind of massive, isn't it? Like, oh,
It's such a good point. And, they do talk about that when a woman becomes pregnant, the hormones of the man, the father, alter along with the woman. Well, we have the capacity to become pregnant every single month.
mm,
And yes, we have to withdraw because we're literally dealing with the fact that a death is occurring within us.
yeah.
Isn't that just in itself messed up that every single month we have to go through a death?
It's really interesting too about how we experience it because, different women have different experiences. I have clients that never have any problems with their period.
Mm,
Um, I think there's an awful lot about sexual trauma and attachment stuff that goes into this.
yeah.
And I saw this as a midwife too.
Mm.
When you are emotionally unsupported or you feel emotionally unsupported,
Mm.
you will bleed more. And when you see women who have, like, postpartum hemorrhage is much less common outside of the hospital. And I know that there's lots of medical um, reasons for, I know that we flood the oxytocin receptors by putting oxytocin on and all the terrible interventions that we insist on. But really, I think it is that emotionally, if you're feeling like you haven't got the support you need or the love that you need for yourself, you will bleed more. And I'm absolutely convinced that that people who have really heavy and difficult periods, uh, that's a period of time where they allow themselves to access that kind of grief and emotional memory. Now, I mean, I'm just speaking from my point of view because I just have seen what I've seen, but that may not be true across the board, and I get that. But to me, there's definitely an element of there's an imbalance at play, and for some women, it's much more traumatic than it is for others.
Mm. Absolutely. I think for me, just speaking on my behalf, I always, I don't remember the very first time that I bled. And um, there's a woman named Jane Hardwick Collins. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's extraordinary. And so she talks about this understanding yourself. You need to start with like the story of your menarche, your first bleed. And that story, similar to birth being initiation into motherhood, your menarche, your first bleed is your initiation into womanhood. And this teaches you, the story of your menarche teaches you how to be a woman, what to expect, what expectations you should have in terms of how to be treated and all of this kind of stuff. And not remembering your menarche is a story within itself because it tells a story of unimportance. There's too much else going on in the world at that time that was more important than this. And so, you know, and that was absolutely that's been my experience throughout my womanhood is that there is something else always more important than whatever it is that I've got to deal with or do or, so I've got to just keep showing up and to just to provide some evidence for what you just said, my bleeds have been, particularly when I was a teenager and my earlier life, interestingly, as I've started to heal and um, right before, oh, like when we were trying for Ollie, my cycles at that time were pretty good compared to what they were. And um, now they're not heavy at all whatsoever and not painful. I definitely still get the emotional and the hormonal, like I need to withdraw, but the pain and all of that isn't really there. When it first came in, and for majority of like I got it around 14, so I think that's pretty late compared to a lot of people. And then all throughout my 20s, it was so heavy, so heavy and traumatic in the sense that this is embarrassing to share this, but I'm going to. When I was a teenager, I used to get such heavy periods that my mum at nighttime would put me in adult nappies because I would just bleed all the way through everything, no matter how much I padded myself up with. And that in itself is just
Oh,
traumatizing.
that's traumatic.
It's
I mean,
extraordinary.
I know, like I remember this is a terrible, I mean, I'm going to share all my terrible stories now. I was literally going to do a postnatal visit to a couple who just had a baby. I didn't know them. It was just they needed a visit and they got allocated to me for that day. So I went to see them and they had this lovely dog. And I sat down on the couch. Now, I just left my clinic, and my clinic had been busy all morning, so I hadn't had a whole lot of time to prepare. But I'd been to the bathroom and put on a couple of pads, just really got myself sorted.
Yeah.
Turned up at their place half an hour later, sat on the couch, was talking to the mother, doing all the checks, baby, and checking her bleeding and all that. And then I stood up off the couch, and I had bled all over their couch. And I was mortified. And I was like, please let me clean this. And he just looked at me and went, have you just had a baby too? And then, of course, the dog was trying to eat the couch. So,
Oh no, oh no, oh no.
So, oh, you're gonna have to put a warning on this. Anyway, I did clean the couch and got out of there. But
Oh,
it's that kind of stuff that, men have no idea
mm,
just how, and it doesn't matter whether it's okay, like if other people feel okay about it, it's about how you feel about it.
absolutely.
It's like, oh my God, I don't even have enough control to be able to manage this.
Yeah.
Having said that, I just want to say that I do Bowen therapy and that really helps. It does require a bit of ongoing stuff, like at least in the beginning. But
Mm,
I also have had acupuncture with an amazing man called Jim in Auckland here. I don't think there's anyone else like him, so there's probably not much point trying to send everybody off to find somebody. But he does acupuncture only around the belly button, which I think is amazing because it connects into all your ancestral everything.
mm,
And since I saw him, the Bowen helped me, and it's definitely helped with endometriosis and stuff like that, which again is another distortion of all of this. But the acupuncture, and I finally got my daughter to go, and normal periods, no pain. No, that was so painful, and suddenly no pain, and yeah, so there's ways around it, and it doesn't have to be an ongoing thing, and people should not live with that. I think we're at this point now where we have options, and we've just got to start finding out things that work for us, and we've got to start sharing that with everybody because it shouldn't be a secret.
no. Do you think that period pain could be linked to generational trauma in
I
the
do,
in the womb?
yeah, I do.
Mm.
It just seems no doubt to me. Every one of us, like I'm a representation of every mother, grandmother, father, grandfather, everyone that came behind me. I'm here representing them in some form. And it's not just the DNA and the, physical stuff. It's about everything that is carried along with us. And I know that my daughter is the representation of all of them as well, but she carries another line as well. So, yes, and I think we have to do everything we can to make sure that we are clearing and healing all of this stuff because we don't need our children to be carrying this any further forward. Like there has to be a point, and we've got the awareness now, so there's no excuse. We've
There's
just got to
no
find
excuse.
ways to do it.
And there's so much, you talked about like the moon's effect on us and what that has done. But in our human history, the things that have been done to women.
Mm.
I actually was interviewing um, a gentleman from the UK yesterday, and I was talking about this with him. It's like, it needs to get out everywhere. But
Yeah.
it's great. And uh, you know, there was a time when women were truly seen as the power that we are. And it was like, this is how the systems were run. They were run around women and their needs and their cycles. And it was women's blood was seen as sacred, and they would put blood all over themselves. There's a lot of like tribes, it's always red on them, and a representation of our blood. And it's like, this is like, not how it should be now. I don't necessarily want people walking around with my blood on their face.
Not
But
necessarily.
not necessarily. We don't need to go to that extent. But, it was really, we were seen as like, we were really revered as like, wow, like this species can create life. And
So
it,
who the hell? We walk around with a portal within us that brings in souls. Like,
exactly.
shouldn't we be on it?
We should totally be honored. We should like that's so wild. It's so, so wild. And it's so like not even a thing.
I
Like,
know.
oh yeah, this is just a thing that happens, whatever. Oh, great, having a baby, blah, blah, blah. But no, it's like, do you understand what's happening here? There's like some of the very first cave paintings that have been found in history were of breasts and of vulvas.
We
This
know who is painting them.
probably with someone's
The
blood.
teenage boys.
Yeah, and land used to be passed down from mother to child, not father to son. We were considered the mistresses of the soil. The land was ours because, well, we create life, so it made sense that we brought life to the land as well. Um,
Right, and she creates everything for us.
exactly,
So aren't we're just paying it forward, paying it back. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And it's, you know, when you look at childbirth and how for the longest time that was women's domain, women's mysteries.
Mm.
I shared yesterday that there were even stories of women plugging up keyholes.
Yeah.
Because just men were not allowed to know what was going on. And that's where the term the word gossip came from, because yeah, so originally, so the church would send, they were called God sibs originally, and the church to document or make note of this new life, this new birth, the church would send the God sib to the birth to do that. But that term, and when a woman was birthing, if you weren't invited, it was like you had basically been exiled. It was the most like offensive thing you could do to someone and not
Oh,
invite them.
can you imagine? It's hard enough to get your unwanted relatives out of the room. Imagine having to invite everybody in the room.
Yeah, but it's like even if you were 5 years old, you were there because, and this
Yeah.
was like part of just, we know how to do our hair. Women just grew up knowing how to take care of birth. And
Yeah.
but it would be once the baby was born, the women in the village would come over with their wine, with their food, and they would stay for days and weeks with the woman, and they would take care of everything, the house and the food and the cleaning and all of the stuff. But it would be like one big party because this was the time when women could shut off their menfolk,
Yeah.
and do whatever they wanted. And so the men on the other side, this is where the term gossip came from. It went from gossip to gossips. And
So yeah, you wouldn't want all those women in your house knowing all your business. Oh, it's so funny.
yeah.
Yeah, isn't it just terribly sad that the most beautiful thing that you can possibly do as a human being, and for the father too, to
Mm,
bring a whole baby, a whole, soul into this world is so devoid of any spirituality or any, awareness
mm,
of just how wonderful this is. We don't have any conversations about that. And I was a midwife for a long time, and I now I just look back at some of the things and I thought, oh gosh, like I just can't believe I knew better going in and I knew better coming out. But somewhere in the middle, I started to be that person who was, like, oh, well, they say that we should do this or we do this. And now I think, I mean, never to the extreme I think that other people have, but,
mm,
and I always, I think that beyond midwifery, my belief is that I'm here to help people make decisions that are right for them. I'm not here to make people make the decisions that I made.
mm.
Just couldn't be any use to anybody if you were doing. There's plenty who do, but yeah, we are here to really just try and give everybody what they need to make the best decision for themselves. And surely that should include a discussion of what their heart's desire is, what their belief is in God, and whatever it is that informs them, and then, try and support what's really the best thing for that baby outside of, you know, outside of a prejudged medical system that decides that you've got to prick a baby to tell how fed it is, all that kind of crazy. So yeah, it makes me so sad. I was starting to have a lot more of those conversations at the end of my midwifery career. But yeah, you end up feeling like it's a lot of the midwives need more support in their spiritual growth. The healthcare assistants need it, the women need it, and you're all there at the same time with all this need. And yeah, there has to be a much bigger conversation. There has to be. I am a little bit like we need to burn all these old systems down and start again. I don't really see that there's few tweaks in a lot of this. I think healthcare has got no health in it. It's such a misnomer. Women should definitely stay away from hospitals. I mean, I agree there are times you need these things. I don't want to throw it all out, but in terms of money and value, shouldn't the hospital be a smaller place that's dealing with the emergencies, and the money goes towards supporting all of the other stuff a family needs to bring in a baby in a safe and healthy environment? It's just so out of whack. Anyway, we don't need to go down that road forever.
Well, it's a it's an important topic because I think there are a lot of people that are like, we need to change the system, da 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 da. And I definitely, when I started learning and doing my research at the beginning, that's kind of also where I was like, oh, this isn't right. We got to do something about this. But ultimately, where I got to is the system, the way that it's running is actually accomplishing exactly what it was designed to accomplish.
Yeah.
So there's no changing it. I think it's a much bigger, a much bigger agenda going on. And there's gonna be, we can put up some fight and we can, want some research and little things I think will be changed over time. Small things. We're starting to hear more and more about birth trauma now, and that's a change. But I think that without sounding too cynical, that the small changes will happen to just simply appease.
Yeah, that's always the way it happens. I mean, the
Right?
thing
It's
that
like we've
is
got to
in
give you
my
the little
mind.
crumbs to
Yeah.
think that you've got some control, but actually you don't. And
Yeah.
there's, we know from what we've learned with the beautiful Rachel and her courses that hospitals are built in very specific places for a reason, in these portal spaces. And I've just finished reading a book actually called Womb Wisdom. And they talk about ley lines in this book. And they talk
Oh,
about the portal spaces, but they call them womb spaces,
yeah.
sacred womb spaces of the earth. And the ley lines are like the exactly what they are, the corridors of energy connecting to each other, basically the heartbeat of the earth, but the womb beat of the earth. And births used to happen in these spaces because it was, you not only carry a portal within you, but birth also opens up a portal. And so,
Mm.
it was just, I'm just like, wow. And so the hospitals are built on these womb spaces, and there is so much darkness that happens in hospitals.
Mm.
And if you're opening up a portal within a portal that has just had, I don't know, decades and decades and probably centuries of darkness and trauma and chaos and death and sickness, all of
Yeah.
this stuff, then whoa, like, whoa, not only what is that doing for you and your baby, but also what is that doing for the collective of everybody?
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, you cannot be unaffected by the energy that's in a place, right? So we know that. We know that we're energy beings. Now, if you're going into the room where somebody's just had a stillbirth and you're going to have your baby there, you don't get told there was a stillbirth there. But when you're a birthing woman, you're picking up all sorts of stuff all the time,
Mm,
and you are going to feel that. So, yeah, yeah, the whole diminishing of our awareness and our knowing, our intuition is just, it's so criminal. And, and I am really cynical about about how we go forward because little bits is not enough. I was doing little bits all the way along and I saw how that worked. It relied on me continuing to do my little bit. If I wasn't there to do it, nobody, you never got paid for it. Nobody ever wanted to support it by creating a real structure around it. I had a service for young mums that I did for a long time. As soon as I wasn't able to do it any longer, I think I did it for 5 years. Once I had children at high school, I was like, I'd always said to my midwifery director, once my kids are at high school, I can't do this because the kids will know who I am when I come to school. At the moment, I can go into a school, they don't know that I'm a midwife, so it's not drawing attention to the fact that somebody there is pregnant.
mm,
But as soon as I've got kids at these schools, I'm walking in and they're like, are you here to see Morgan or, your son or your daughter? And they're going to put it together. So, um, so once I moved away, that just didn't continue. And then I did contraception for a while. I feel so bad now. I'm like, oh God, can't believe I worked through the fascia and I was doing the JDL insertions into the arms because
mm,
I was seeing the huge rate of young pregnant, young women having babies, and it wasn't that you could stop the first baby, and I don't know. I mean, there's lots of things that are wrong in the world. I don't know that having a baby young is necessarily the worst of that.
mm,
Um, all the other stuff around that might be,
mm.
um, but having, two babies when you were under 20 is a lot more to deal with. So I thought, well, maybe I can offer contraception as an option and
Mm.
set up a clinic doing that and did that for about 4 years. I do think that maybe still I think maybe it's still going on up there. So, maybe some things do. And it wasn't just me, there were other people who did it in other places. So, it was probably a different ball game. But yeah, little changes is not enough. And and I really struggle with I don't know that I could trust somebody to care for my daughter having a baby who has not stood up and said there is something wrong in this last 4 years. If you can go along with that, I just don't have faith that you're going to be able to be a really wise, caring, and informative person who's going to uphold the Bill of Rights or, just friggin' universal law even.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that's my cynicism.
totally, totally, and 100%. And it's, yeah, it's challenging as well because the individual that goes into that system goes in with good intentions. They're not going in there to try and, take the power away from women and, then that's not the intention that they're going in there, but they're they're going into a system that is set up and designed to take the power away from women.
Yeah, and I think if you're there long enough, I understand it's all a slow creep, but that one wasn't. that
Mm.
whole thing about telling people that they had to do something experimental with their babies, that, I mean, there has to be a line. There's, surely we can see that there's a line there. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And it was just, yeah, I mean, in my case, like, it was so wild how far people were down, how do I put it, really on one side of the pendulum. And uh, so utterly convinced. And the midwife that I had, that, she I'm grateful for her because had she not been so intense in what she said and how she was about it, I don't know, would I have continued down that path? Would I have taken things into my own hands? I don't know. I mean, no one can tell truly what would have happened. But she said to me, she looked me in the eyes and said, "Well, if you don't take this, you may as well start preparing to give birth to a dead baby."
So criminal.
I just, and this was a time where husbands weren't allowed to come into the appointments with you. So you're a pregnant woman, you're very hormonal and vulnerable and very sensitive, and
Mm.
your protective masculine is not allowed to come with you. So they can say anything that they want to say in those appointments. And this was not the first time she'd try to have this conversation with me and tell me that I need to do it. And I over and over and over again, no, no. I used to go into those waiting rooms shaking with anxiety because one, I didn't know which midwife I was going to have at this time and if I'd have to go through this whole thing again and explain to them why, no. But yeah, and then she said that and I just shock. I couldn't believe. I could believe it because of the craziness that was going on. But just to zoom out and think logically, like in one sentence, you're saying avoid soft cheeses.
Yeah.
But if you don't have this that hasn't been tested and has now been proven as, totally and utterly ineffective, um, you are going to kill your baby.
Mm.
Like that just makes no logical sense whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, there's just been a whole absence of logic and sense in this. Oh, it's starting to, things seem to be starting to turn, and I mean, that's good. And I do have a lot of compassion. I mean, I feel angry about it when I really zero in on some of that stuff. And no, but I do have a lot of compassion for the fact that people are going to start to see this and they're going to really struggle with some of the things that they have said and done, And I mean, no one's perfect and we're all here to play our part. And some people have done a really good job of playing their really shit part.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll be thinking them in a couple of years. But, you know, I, yeah, I always have wondered, like, as we've gone along this, and I thought, what is going to happen when my clients aren't coming in and telling me about how their husband passed away 5 days after he did what he was told. But what about when they start coming in and they're the people who've been on television telling people to do this stuff? Like, how do I approach it? Am I going to say no? I've always said I won't say no to somebody who's coming for healing
Mm.
because who am I to say you can't have it? But that's luckily we're all getting a lot of time to figure this stuff out and a lot of time to recognize, where our own flaws are. And luckily, you know, hypocrisy is part of the human condition and it's part of why we've got a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And and I'm just as fallible as everybody else. So yeah, I guess we're going to muddle our way through that. And yeah, maybe it's just a little bit of that. We're recognizing that where we are hypocritical ourselves, just so we don't get too much on our high horse and think we're above it.
Mm.
life has a way of knocking life in.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely it does. Constantly.
But we got to do a lot better, um, and how we do a lot better has to do with, coming in and being far more open-minded and far more compassionate to one another. I do think there's a real thing about moving into compassion, and I know lots of people have said that, so it's not an original idea, but I'm really feeling so much of that in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And we've had incredible things going on with this eclipse season, and I've had some of the best adventures of my life in the last couple of months,
Mm,
which certainly wouldn't have happened without all of this rubbish going on.
mm,
And I'm getting to meet some really amazing people. Like I think, wow, look what happened when we spoke, and what happened for you and what happened for me was just like, oh my God, my sister,
yes.
there you are. I feel like that all of the time. And I think, part of the journey is like just being able to find each other again and to recognize that and to not hold on too tightly and not be too caught up in all of the bullshit around it, and like thinking that we have to be, when we did our reading and you said to me, oh, you're going to be doing these, feelings on a bigger level. And I just, there's part of me that's like, I just really love a Saturday where I get to go and meditate at the park with my tiny little meditation group, come home and do some baking and sit down and knit. Like, that's what I want to keep doing. And I don't want to get caught up in the whole idea of having to be something I'm not for other people. Like, the best way I can show up is just keep doing what fulfills me.
Mm,
And what fulfills me is, doing this, having these conversations, finally having these conversations in a really out loud way, meeting all these beautiful people who, they're just, like, we're making friends with each other. This is so much better than, finding an interesting person to have on your podcast. It's so much more meaningful this way.
I just want to let that wash over me what you said because it was so good. So, so, so good. And I'm really what we were talking about before about the gold dust, the golden sprinkles, the golden stars. I really feel like that was the craziness of the past few years, especially the 2020 craziness. The gift of that is that the golden stars, you are the golden star, Max is a golden star, I am, Rachel is, Narita is. We're all now shining really brightly and connecting with each other, and we get to do that, and we get to now know each other, like we found
Mhm.
each other. I don't know how many lifetimes we've attempted to meet, but it feels like a lot. It feels like a lot. And the first we did a little FaceTime. And I don't know, but like the first few seconds, we were just giddy and giggling. Like, oh my goodness, here you are in the flesh. Well, the
Yeah.
closest thing we can get to being in the flesh. And I, I, it's so interesting what you said about, yeah, you are going to be doing this on a big scale and the resistance for that.
Mm.
I so feel that in that there's such a ginormous part of me that would be so happy and so fulfilled to just be a mother, be at home, raise my babies, have like 15 of them because I love giving birth, and just like have a house full of kids and run a homestead and, just be a mom,
Mm.
not just be
And
a mom,
that's
but
enough. That's enough. right?
That's
I
every.
think this kind of this trajectory that people have about like being this, stand up healing superstar, like isn't the best healing that we just, it's like the domino effect of the language. Like my friend Mel, I used to call her the galactivator, and she would, get all these people speaking their language, and then, and then it's like actually it's a galactivation because look, I just speak to you and you go and speak, and then you're sending a message out there, and isn't the best return on that that everybody gets their healing underway,
Mm,
and then we are allowed to actually enjoy the lives that we have.
mm,
We are not here to do all the public stuff forever. That's not what we came for.
mm,
We really came to learn how to enjoy having a physical partnership with other people, a relationship with children. Like these kids are just going to be so incredible. So are we going to spend all our time running around trying to teach other people and miss out on that?
mm.
It's crazy that you'd even, it's such a crazy concept and the world's so set up for it.
So set up for it. So set up for it. And at the same time, there is such a crazy need.
I know.
And
But
so,
maybe the more of us, we can meet the need without having to go out and sacrifice so much.
mm,
I think that's the thing, is that there has been this like if you're going to do it was like even being a midwife. To be the best kind of a midwife was to be on call and to be engaged with that woman and family for the whole period of the experience. I mean, that's wonderful, but for the first 5 years of my daughter's life, every time the phone rang, it meant I left the house. If I was reading her a bedtime story and the phone rang, she's like, don't answer it. That's a big sacrifice. And every one of us that puts the other work first, like we have to do that.
mm,
For goodness sakes, there has to be a balance. Like we
mm.
can't sacrifice again. Like we finally get our children and we get to protect them. And then what? We have to run out and make money and, prove ourselves. It doesn't make sense to me.
It's so set up that way, especially now with the rising cost of living and, the I think, the childcare systems now, there's so like kids are in childcare so much earlier than what they used to be. There's like pre-childcare or, something like that. And then they have before school and after school care and and then it's so, so much. And it's one thing that my husband and I, we work so hard. We do everything with our son. There's not really, we don't, so he hasn't gone to childcare or anything like that. And he's never even been alone with anyone else other than the two of us. And it would be so much easier to put him into some kind of care system and do that. But I think it's so important that he actually spends time with his parents. And so life is hectic, life is chaotic. Because Corey works full time. I practically work full time with my business and everything I'm doing. And so
Mm.
everything I do is around Corey's schedule. And it's like, so he's always with one of us, always, which is, the best that we can do at the moment. I would really love to just be with him full time, that we could both be with him full
Yeah.
time, just have a slow life.
Well, you're doing it in a way, aren't you? It's just that you're having to really juggle to make it work. And
Yeah.
I mean, and everyone does their very best. And I think that's the other thing, is everyone actually does do their very best. But, isn't the whole point of if we're on this, if this ascension path that everyone's so set on, getting better. Like surely the getting better is to be more present and to be here, not waiting for somebody, split in the planet so that half of us go that way, half of us go that way. Really, what I would love to see is I love this earth. I love being here. I love, being outside and getting to enjoy all of the beautiful places that we have to adventure in. Like that's surely the whole point is to be able to come back home to where we are right now and to our children. I'm dying to be a grandmother. I, I'm not dying for my children to have children, but I just can't wait until I
Mm,
get to enjoy that bit because I know that now I've got myself in a situation where when they have children, I'll be around. They may not want me, but that'll be up to them finding the boundaries.
yeah. And it is something, to have the mums or the grandmothers be involved and want to be involved is something so, so precious and so special. And to have them be involved in a way that they also respect boundaries, they're not like, you know, no, this is how you need to do it, and you do it like
Yeah,
this.
you can't be. Yeah,
No, so that's so, so, so special. And I I'm the same, not in like being a grandmother yet, but in that I just can't wait to have a little girl. I really, really, really want to have a girl. It's because I'm like, I'm gonna set things right with you. But I know at the same time having a little girl will be so triggering in lots of ways because that's a little me, you know, for all the
I mean they're just so beautiful. However, they show up. Oh, who follows them?
sorry, say that again. Oh no, Sarah, are you there? Oh no. Oh, you're back.
Here we are. I can see you. Yeah, but no, my daughter's just started her apprenticeship as she's doing fabrication and welding, and you know, I'm so immensely proud of her, and
Amazing.
I didn't get it all right. Well, I see that there's hope for us when you can still get things wrong and still see your kids doing really well and knowing that they're good people. And that's what you want for them, really. Have a happy life, be happy, you know, not have to not have to worry about striving too hard. Get along and enjoy the bits that they've got.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so amazing. You're so beautiful. I just love connecting with you and being in your presence. Oh,
Me too. I love seeing you. I really miss Thursdays. Oh, I might do the course again. I'm pretty sure there's stuff I can learn.
I've thought about doing that with Rachel's course. 'Cause that month, that was such a great month. I was doing her course and she was doing my course. So twice a week I was getting, I'm like, I'm getting my dose in.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that one. Wow.
But it's just, when the golden stars connect, it's all, I just want to be around the golden star. I just want to be around you. I just want to, you know what I mean? Like it's, yeah.
Right, and there's more of us.
There's more
We're
of
all
us.
out here. We're gonna find each other. It's just, I mean, it's just a matter of time, and everything will come right. But yeah, I mean, it's so much better in the world, isn't it? Knowing that, knowing that there's so many of us out there, and we are finding each other, and yeah, and everyone's invited.
Yeah.
This isn't a cool kids club. It's like everybody gets to come along, and
You
you
can all be a
know,
cool kid in this club. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I tell you, that's one thing I found about this whole last 4 years because I got really involved in the freedom movement here. I mean, really involved at a local level, like thing, incredible. Um, but going out and meeting people and realizing how many social misfits were the ones that saw through all of it
Mm,
and going, oh my goodness, that's a real lesson, isn't it? That there's a whole lot of people who never fit the mold, who are always a little quirky and a little weird and weren't included, and yet they are here because they could see through all of it. And so, it's time for us all to make space for each other.
totally. I love that you just said that because it is so, so, so true. So true. Um, I have noticed that there are some people who are really like if there's extremes, there's like the some people who are quite extreme that like everything's going to end tomorrow and it's really doom and gloom. And yeah, Corey and I kind of got started to get kind of sucked into that thinking. It's easy to go there when you go through the awakening process and you realize just actually how messed up the world is. Whoa. But yeah,
And you're
there's
going, well, if it's that extreme, maybe it is true. Maybe we are going to have a solar flash and that's what's going to happen.
yeah, and I th there's part of me was like almost like, oh, that would be a relief actually. I just need a huge big reset because far out the stuff that actually goes on in this world is nuts. But yeah, and that was quite full on. Like we were really in a fear mindset, and I think that's really important too, to find an equilibrium because yeah, there is some crazy stuff happening. Um, but the whole point of, they talk about energy harvesting, and that's like a real thing. And so it's so hard because I'm like, all right, I'm not going to get angry because they want to keep me in a low vibrational state. But then I'm also like, no, but I need to express this. Because otherwise then it'll just get stored in my body. So how,
Yeah.
I'm like, do you have any suggestions on that? How do you
Yeah. Get your feet on the ground. I mean, it is. It's literally get outside.
get out?
Enjoy this paradise that we have. Like this is what it's all about, right? Is to be here and to be in balance and have the experience and not have to do the trauma thing forever.
Mm,
The trauma has been there to separate us from the awareness of what's really available to us.
completely
Yeah, so
in
without
every
it.
way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
Yeah, Max Lowen talks a lot about trauma-based mind control because it fragments our soul. And that's also, I've recently learned a little tiny bit about holographic kinetics. Do you know about this?
Uh, I think so, but it's a very impressive term, and I think we should.
It's very impressive, isn't it? There was actually a woman in the course with us that does it. And
Um,
yeah, and she's explained it to me. Uh yeah. And so holographic kinetics, so their belief is that we have spirit and then our soul. And our soul is a fragment of our spirit. And so we are one fragment of that spirit, kind of like you could relate it to the ocean. The spirit is the ocean, and the fragment, our soul, our individual soul, is each wave. And the waves are still part of the ocean, but it becomes individual in that sense. And so uh, what trauma does is it then fragments our individual soul even more, kind of like shattering a glass. And
Mhm.
it's really, really difficult to feel powerful and feel in control of your soul and be aware of all of your amazing gifts and, be empowered and all of this stuff when you have been fragmented many, many, many times over. And they do this so many different ways on a large collective scale, but also the trauma that we each individually experience. So we're just incredibly fragmented as a society, I think. And so I think part of why people like you and me are coming together is, I think, because we need to help the healing on that collective scale.
And and as terrible as all of that stuff is,
Yeah.
the remembering and the coming back to all of the truth of who you are is so beautiful. Like, I wouldn't miss this because the joy and the confirmation and all of that love that is available for us is all just coming in. It's like you said, it's that, if you use the water analogy, it's all the droplets
Mm.
finding their way into the puddle and then the puddle forming into the stream and getting back. We find our way back to that ocean. There is nothing that can stop that.
Mm.
So, let's just focus on going back and getting back to the ocean and just, yeah, we know it's happening. Nothing can be done now because we know about all of the games, we know about all the dissociation and all of the ways in which they've tried to keep us apart, and they've tried to keep our power from us and all those things. And it's, part of the reason that we came here, I'm sure, as much as there's a lot of shitty things and there's a lot of shitty people doing shitty things,
Yeah.
we just, like you said, sometimes going to turn around and you're going to say thank you because you've just given me the greatest gift. Like, I just remembered who I am, and I just remember that I can speak my light language, and I can, and my love is bigger than your hate, and all those things. So,
Mm.
it's a good place to be, really.
Absolutely. And I think what I have really noticed, just to add to what you were saying, is that it happened so quickly. Like the attempt to fragment us has been over thousands of years. They've tried to do so many different things. They spent 500 years burning women at the stake, for goodness sake. There's been
Where did they? Yeah, I mean, they must have been breeding us to burn us at that point.
it got to the point where there was a story that I read. Oh, I can't even remember what time it was, but it would have been like 1400 or 1500 BC or something like that, where a husband went to the town hall or whatever, and it was a time of, if you suspected your neighbor was a witch and was performing any kind of witchly activities, and at this point, basically um, anything that made you a woman was was considered a witchly act, So originally it was an attack on the midwives. So any form of that knowledge being passed down, because how we passed down the understanding of how to take care of birth was not through books and writing. It was through like showing and teaching and telling. And
Mhm.
so it was witches were actually midwives. They wanted to get rid of all the midwives so that it was just a men's thing, you know. So anytime someone was seen as practicing herbal medicine or anything like that, oh, you're a witch, you need to get burned at the stake. And it got so extreme that a husband went to the town council or whatever they were at the time and had said basically that my wife, I think she might be a witch because I've discovered this it's like a ball, and when I touch it, it makes her make these sounds. Essentially, he discovered the clitoris. But no one had ever seen
Oh,
it before or known what it was. And so he reported her, and she got burned at the stake for being a witch because she had a clitoris.
that poor man. He would have struggled to find another wife.
What I'm saying is like this has been going on for such a long time, and yet you and I can have a conversation. The next day I can have my light language come through. Do you know? And so when
Yeah.
the healing and the truth, when we allow it, when it is so like it's coming through with velocity now, so it's all of what they've done, all of what they continue to try and do. It holds no weight compared to love and compared to truth. And so when we each work through whatever we need to work through to remember who we are at our truth, oh, we become puddles, we become rivers. And it's so much easier to find other rivers,
Yeah.
than it is to find other droplets.
Yeah.
It's so quick. So yeah.
It's a lovely place to end.
Sarah, thank you so much for being here today. I truly have no idea how long we've been talking for. I feel like we've been talking for like 5 minutes, but also I'm aware that that's probably not the case. But time becomes a
I
back.
tell you what, it's the best Mother's Day I've had for a while.
Oh, me too. Thank you so, so much. I would love to give you an opportunity to share where people can find you, find the work that you do, if they would like to experience you and your incredible gifts and how you can help them with their healing as well.
Yeah. Well, I've got a website. My website is www.bowentherapyauckland.com. So I might have to, it's Bowen. Now, there's so many things that I'm offering that it's not just Bowen therapy, but
Mm.
I have kind of set myself up so I can do more online sessions. And yeah, there's no limits.
The-
So yeah, if you want to, get in touch, please do. I'd be really happy to work with you. And yeah, I also encourage you to do Georgina's course because the numerology is an amazing language to get more information.
Mm. Thank you so much for saying that. Um, and I love that you said that you do many things. Um, my advice would just be book a session with Sarah, and Sarah will deliver whatever you shows up that you need in that session. Would you say?
I think so. I think you know what you want. Your
Yeah.
heart will lead the way, and
It's so hard to
um,
label what you do as a healer, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And because increasingly there's so many ways to live.
Mm,
There's so many ways. I do light language meditations there's a library on YouTube under Hearts and Hearts, but it's got some numbers and I can't remember, so maybe I can send you the link.
yeah.
But I mean, nothing I do is highly polished or professional in the sense that you might find with other people. I probably price myself accordingly though. So I figure that's probably the trade-off. But yeah, if you want to work with me, then it's going to be real stuff. And um, yeah, I love that. I love just every person that turns up has got some amazing connections that they either know of or sometimes that they don't know
Mm.
of. It's a real pleasure.
So, so great. So I'll put all of the information about all of what you do in the show notes. I love saying that. It's a real podcaster thing to say. And yes, as Sarah mentioned, I do have a numerology course coming up starting the 28th of May. So if you're interested in learning numbers and the language of the universe, one of them, then check me out. I'll put all the links to that come also in the show notes. But other than that, thank you so much for being
You're
here. I'm
welcome, darling. Thank you for having me. I'm really delighted.
so excited.
Happy Mother's Day to everybody. You probably won't see this on Mother's Day, but we are recording it on Mother's Day, and
It's
what
Mother's
a
Day.
very topical conversation.
Yes. Oh, so beautiful.